Is your regulation or supervision agency focused on symptoms, or is it addressing the causes of misconduct? What is a good supervision method to address the causes of misconduct? My name is Auto Kastrup, and this is Supervision Strategy. Everyday supervision practice can be quite frustrating, really. Let's say we're trying to stop firm A from mistreating its customers. And we're happy when we succeed in this. But while we were focusing on the misconduct of firm A, you know that firm B, C, and D do the exact same thing. And what's worse, as soon as you turn your back, you might find that firm A goes right back to the same old misconduct as before. Does that sound at all familiar to you? It does to me. So this is typically what happens if you're fighting non-compliance, but you're not addressing the underlying causes that lead to this non-compliance. But how do you address the underlying causes of non-compliance? How do you even find out what these are? In this post, I will discuss a seemingly simple, but really quite powerful technique that you can use in your supervision practice to pinpoint and address the underlying causes of non-compliance. It's called the 5 Whys technique. Let's say, for example, that you observe that a number of companies are routinely breaking the customer due diligence rules. So they're not collecting the information they need to properly serve their customers. Now obviously, you could stop your analysis right there. Just instruct these firms to improve and possibly initiate formal enforcement procedures. But if a lot of firms are routinely ignoring these rules, there's probably an underlying pattern there. So let's say you take your analysis one step further and you ask, why is the firm routinely ignoring the rules? So you do some additional research and you find that personnel typically is just not taking the time to collect the client information that they need. So that might lead you to a different or perhaps an additional intervention measure. And so now you might ask the firm to monitor personnel more closely or provide extra training, for instance. But you could also ask the same why question again. So why is personnel not taking the time that it needs? And if you investigate this, you might find that personnel is constantly pressed for time because the firm is pushing additional sales through very ambitious sales targets. Of course, you could go deeper and you could ask, why these ambitious sales targets? And if you investigate, you might find that the firm thinks it needs these targets because it has quite acute liquidity problems. And if you investigate why, you might find that the firm is not making a sustainable profit margin on its existing customers. Or perhaps you dig deeper one more time and you find that the real problem here, at the root of it, is that this firm has inefficiencies, has intense competition, because it's really using an outdated business model. So this is called the 5 Whys technique. It was first introduced by Toyota and it's now being used in many industries worldwide. Now obviously 5 is just a rule of thumb. It's sort of a number derived from experience. But the key of this technique is to repeatedly challenge your own conclusions by asking yourself, why? Now, and a key takeaway point here is that every new answer to an additional why question will lead you to a new and additional possible intervention in your supervision practice. So just take this example here. So your subsequent answers to the question why may lead you to very different interventions. They may lead you, respectively, to push the firm to provide more staff training, to adjust its sales targets, to mitigate its liquidity issues, to improve margin per customer, or indeed to reconsider its business model. So just by performing such an analysis, you're broadening not just your understanding, but also your options of intervention. But I do think though there is a trade-off here to be made. It's not clear-cut. So on the one hand, if you just stay with the compliance issue, the breach of compliance itself, then maybe you're imposing a fine, you're pushing for better customer due diligence operations. So you might have a result relatively quickly, but it may not be very sustainable. On the other hand, if you dig deep You ask why 5 times. Let's say in this given example, you're pushing the firm to change its business model. Now, if you can achieve that, that is very much a sustainable result. However, it's uncertain whether you can actually achieve this, and it will take years. So perhaps you might take a moment to ask yourself, or perhaps ask a colleague, these 2 questions. How deep do your analyses and interventions typically go? In other words, at which why question do you tend to stop? Do you think 5 whys analysis could be a useful tool in your supervision practice? And if so, how specifically? So what are your thoughts on 5 whys analysis? Let us all know in the comment section. If you have questions on how to apply this in everyday practice, let me know at supervisionstrategy.com. I'd love to hear from you. So next time we'll be talking about a strategy topic, risk-based supervision. Now when people talk about risk-based supervision, I find they often mean quite different things. So I'm going to try and clear up some of that confusion. Until then, my name is Alto Castor. Thank you for watching, and thank you for working on supervision.